Harvest Moon Hayride Part 2. The week leading up to the Pumpkin Festival passed in a blur of preparation and stolen moments. Angela found herself looking forward to Emily's morning coffee deliveries with an anticipation that had nothing to do with caffeine and everything to do with the way Emily's face lit up when she smiled. They worked together most days, helping each other with the final harvest preparations, and Angela discovered that everything was more enjoyable with Emily's company. Tasks that had always been solitary became opportunities for conversation and laughter. Even mundane chores like washing pumpkins and checking for blemishes felt less like work when Emily was there to share stories and bad jokes. The physical attraction was definitely mutual. Angela caught Emily watching her work with an appreciation that went beyond professional interest, and their casual touches lingered longer than strictly necessary. They'd shared several more kisses, each one leaving Angela more certain that whatever was happening between them was worth exploring. "You know," Emily said on Thursday morning as they loaded Angela's prize pumpkin onto a cart for transport to the festival grounds, "win or lose, I think this has been the best harvest season I've ever had." Angela carefully secured the massive pumpkin with extra padding. "Because of your improved yields?" "Because of you," Emily said simply. The honesty in her voice made Angela's chest tight with emotion. "Emily. I know it's only been a week since we figured things out," Emily continued, "but I can't imagine doing this without you anymore. Any of it. The farming, the festival, the day-to-day stuff." Angela straightened up, studying Emily's face. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" "I'm saying I'm falling for you, Angela Martinez. Hard and fast and completely." Emily's cheeks were pink, but her gaze was steady. "I know it's probably too soon to say that, but I've never been good at hiding what I feel." Angela felt her heart do something complicated and wonderful in her chest. "It's not too soon," she said quietly. "Because I'm falling for you too." Emily's smile was brilliant. "Really? Really?" Angela reached out to tuck a strand of blonde hair behind Emily's ear. "I've been thinking about it all week, actually. How different everything feels now that we're not competing with each other." "Different how?" "Better. Easier. Like I can finally breathe properly." Angela's thumb traced the line of Emily's cheekbone. "I didn't realize how much energy I was spending on being defensive until I stopped doing it." Emily leaned into Angela's touch. "I love this version of you. Relaxed and happy and open." "I love who I am when I'm with you," Angela admitted. "You make me want to be braver." Before Emily could respond, the sound of approaching vehicles made them both look toward the road. A caravan of trucks and trailers was heading toward the festival grounds, other farmers arriving to set up their displays. "Showtime," Angela said with a grin. "Showtime," Emily agreed. "Ready to dazzle the judges with our superior pumpkin growing skills? Ready to have fun and not worry about the outcome?" Emily's laugh was pure joy. "That works too." They spent the rest of the morning setting up their respective displays at the festival grounds. Angela's setup was traditional but impressive, neat rows of perfectly sized pumpkins organized by variety, with her massive prize specimen taking center stage. Emily's display was more artistic, with pumpkins arranged among hay bales and corn stalks in a way that invited photography while still showcasing the quality of her produce. "They both look amazing," said Margaret Webb, the festival coordinator, as she made her rounds checking on the various displays. "Best competition we've had in years." Angela caught Emily's eye and they shared a secret smile. If only Margaret knew how much the competition had changed in the past week. "When do the judges make their rounds?" Emily asked. "Tomorrow afternoon, right before the award ceremony. You'll both want to be here to answer questions about your growing techniques." Margaret consulted her clipboard. "Angela, you're in your usual spot at the front of the display tent. Emily, we've got you right next to her this year since you placed so well last time." Angela felt a flutter of nerves that had nothing to do with competition and everything to do with spending the day in close quarters with Emily while trying to maintain professional facades. They hadn't discussed how public they wanted to be about their relationship, especially at an event where half the county would be watching. As if reading her thoughts, Emily appeared at her elbow as Margaret moved on to check other displays. Everything okay? Emily asked quietly. Just wondering how we're going to handle this, Angela gestured between them, in front of everyone tomorrow. However you're comfortable with, Emily said immediately. I'm not trying to put pressure on you or make things weird. We can be completely professional if that's what you prefer. Angela appreciated the consideration, but the offer made her realize something important about herself. Actually, I don't want to hide this. Us. Whatever we are. Emily's smile was soft and wondering. Whatever we are? I'd like to figure that out, Angela said. Officially. After the festival maybe we could talk about what this is? I'd like that too. They were interrupted by the arrival of more farmers setting up displays, and spent the rest of the day helping neighbors and catching up with friends they only saw at agricultural events. Angela found herself introducing Emily to people she'd known for decades, and was pleased to see how warmly her fellow farmers welcomed Emily into their conversations. She fits, observed Jim Patterson, an older farmer whose family had been growing corn in the valley even longer than the Martinez family had been growing pumpkins. Sometimes you can tell when someone belongs, you know? Angela did know, though she was surprised to hear Jim articulate it. Emily did fit, not just into the farming community, but into Angela's life in a way that felt both surprising and inevitable. The festival officially opened Friday evening with a community dinner and live music, but the serious judging wouldn't happen until Saturday afternoon. Angela and Emily sat together at one of the long picnic tables, sharing a plate of barbecue and listening to the local bluegrass band tune their instruments. Nervous? Emily asked, nudging Angela's shoulder. Surprisingly, no, Angela replied, and realized she meant it. I think I'm more excited than nervous. About the judging? About everything. Angela met Emily's gaze directly. The judging, the festival, spending the whole day with you, all of it. Emily's smile was radiant. Me too. As the band launched into their first song, Angela felt a contentment she hadn't experienced in years. Around them, families laughed and friends caught up and children ran between the tables with the wild energy that only comes from outdoor festivals and too much sugar. The air smelled like barbecue and autumn leaves and the promise of changing seasons. Dance with me, Emily said suddenly, standing and extending her hand as the band began a slow waltz. Angela hesitated for just a moment, aware of the curious glances they were already attracting. Then she looked at Emily's hopeful expression and decided she didn't care who was watching. I'd love to, she said, taking Emily's offered hand. They moved to the small patch of grass that served as an impromptu dance floor, joining a handful of other couples swaying to the music. Emily was a graceful dancer, no surprise given her ballet background, and she led Angela through the simple steps with gentle confidence. You're full of surprises, Angela murmured as they turned slowly under the string lights that had been hung between the trees. Good surprises, I hope. The best kind. They danced through 3 songs, increasingly oblivious to anyone else around them. Angela felt like they were in their own bubble of warmth and music and possibility, Emily's hand secure in hers and Emily's smile the only thing that mattered in the world. When the band took a break, they reluctantly returned to their table, but not before Angela caught several approving smiles from neighbors and friends. The response was warmer than she'd expected, and she felt some of her anxiety about going public with their relationship begin to fade. That was nice, Emily said as they settled back into their seats. Very nice. Angela's hand found Emily's under the table, their fingers interlacing naturally. Thank you for asking. Thank you for saying yes. They stayed until the band finished their last set, reluctant to let the evening end. Walking back to their trucks in the parking area, Angela felt the pleasant exhaustion that comes from a day well spent in good company. Big day tomorrow, Emily said as they reached Angela's truck. Big day, Angela agreed. Whatever happens with the judging, I'm glad we're doing this together. Me too. Emily stepped closer, close enough that Angela could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. Sweet dreams, neighbor. Angela kissed her softly, right there in the festival parking lot where anyone could see. Sweet dreams, Emily. As she drove home through the quiet country roads, Angela reflected on how much her life had changed in just 1 week. 7 days ago, she'd been a solitary farmer focused entirely on defending her family's legacy. Tonight, she was half of something new and wonderful, more excited about the future than anxious about the past. The harvest moon was rising as she pulled into her driveway, casting silver light across both pumpkin patches. In just a few hours, the judging would be over and she'd know whether her family's winning streak would continue. But somehow, that seemed less important than it had a week ago. Win or lose, she had Emily. And that felt like the best prize of all. Saturday dawned crisp and bright, with the kind of perfect October weather that made festival organizers weep with gratitude. Angela was up before sunrise, moving through her morning chores with nervous energy that she tried to convince herself was just pre-competition jitters. Emily appeared at her kitchen door with coffee and pastries just as Angela was debating whether she was too anxious to eat breakfast. "Fuel for champions," Emily announced, setting a bag of what smelled like fresh cinnamon rolls on Angela's kitchen table. "You need to eat something or you'll crash before the judging even starts." "I'm not really hungry," Angela began, but Emily fixed her with a look that brooked no argument. "Eat," Emily commanded gently. "Doctor's orders." "You're not a doctor." "I have a degree in computer science, which definitely qualifies me to diagnose nervous farmers who haven't eaten properly." Emily poured coffee into 2 mugs and pushed one toward Angela. "Besides, these are made with pumpkins from your patch. You're basically eating your own success." Angela couldn't argue with that logic, and the cinnamon roll was indeed delicious, sweet and perfectly spiced, with a tender crumb that spoke of genuine baking skill. "Better?" Emily asked as Angela finished the pastry and visibly relaxed. "Much better. Thank you." They drove to the festival grounds together, Angela's truck loaded with last-minute supplies and Emily following in her own vehicle. The parking area was already bustling with activity despite the early hour. Vendors setting up food booths, families arriving for the day's activities, and farmers making final adjustments to their displays. Angela's massive pumpkin looked even more impressive in the morning light, its deep orange skin almost glowing against the backdrop of smaller specimens. Emily's display was equally stunning in its own way, artfully arranged to showcase both the quality of her pumpkins and her talent for presentation. "They both look incredible," said Tom Harrison, whose apple orchard was set up in the next booth over. "Gonna be a tough decision for the judges this year." Angela felt a flutter of the old competitive anxiety, but it was tempered by genuine excitement about Emily's chances. Win or lose, they'd both put their best work forward. The morning passed quickly as festival-goers began arriving in earnest. Angela and Emily took turns manning their respective displays, answering questions about growing techniques and helping customers select pumpkins for carving or cooking. Angela was pleased to see that Emily drew consistent crowds of admirers, many of them asking detailed questions about her farming methods and business model. "You've got a real gift for this," Angela said during a brief lull in foot traffic. "The customer service part, I mean. You make everyone feel welcome." "I learned from the best," Emily replied with a smile that made Angela's heart skip. "Oh. Who taught you customer service?" "You, actually. Watching how you interact with people at the farmer's market, how you take time to explain things and make connections." Emily gestured toward an elderly woman who was examining Angela's display with obvious appreciation. "Mrs. Henderson comes to your booth every week not just because you grow good vegetables, but because you remember her grandchildren's names and ask about her garden." Angela felt warmth spread through her chest. She'd never thought of her interactions with customers as particularly special, but Emily's observation made her see her own work through new eyes. "I just like people," Angela said quietly. "And I like sharing what I know about growing things." "Exactly. That's why you're so good at this." Before Angela could respond, a commotion near the entrance to the display tent caught their attention. The festival judges had arrived, a panel of agricultural extension agents, experienced farmers from neighboring counties, and local dignitaries who would evaluate each entry on multiple criteria. "Showtime," Emily murmured, straightening her shirt and checking her display one last time. "Good luck," Angela said, meaning it completely. "You too." The judging process was thorough and professional. Each farmer had 15 minutes to present their best specimens and answer questions about their growing methods, pest management, and overall operation. Angela watched Emily's presentation from her nearby booth, impressed by her neighbor's poise and expertise. Emily fielded questions about soil preparation, organic pest control, and crop rotation with confidence, clearly articulating the research and planning that had gone into her farming decisions. When one judge asked about her marketing approach, Emily's face lit up as she described her agritourism model and the importance of connecting consumers with local agriculture. Impressive operation, Angela heard one judge comment to his colleague as they moved away from Emily's display. Innovative approach to traditional farming. Angela's own presentation went smoothly, drawing on decades of experience and 3 generations of accumulated knowledge. She discussed her composting system, demonstrated proper pumpkin selection techniques, and answered detailed questions about her family's farming philosophy. Outstanding quality, one judge noted, examining Angela's prize pumpkin with obvious admiration. This is textbook perfect specimen development. Tradition and innovation in perfect balance, agreed another. When the judging concluded, Angela felt cautiously optimistic about both her and Emily's chances. They'd both presented strong cases, and the judges had seemed genuinely impressed by both operations. "How do you think it went?" Emily asked as they watched the judges retreat to deliberate. "Good for both of us, I think," Angela replied honestly. "Your presentation was excellent. So was yours. I learned things about pumpkin growing just from listening to your answers." They had 2 hours to kill before the award ceremony, so they decided to explore the rest of the festival together. They shared a funnel cake, watched a demonstration of traditional blacksmithing, and browsed the craft booths selling everything from hand-knitted scarves to locally made honey. Angela found herself relaxing as the afternoon wore on, the combination of Emily's company and the festive atmosphere dissolving her lingering nerves. Whatever happened with the judging, she was having the best festival experience in years. "Ladies and gentlemen, please gather around the main stage for our annual award ceremony." The announcement crackled through the festival's sound system, and Angela felt her stomach clench with sudden nerves. They made their way to the crowd gathering in front of the small stage where the festival coordinator was setting up a microphone. Angela spotted several other farmers she knew, all wearing expressions of hopeful anxiety. "Before we announce this year's winners," Margaret Webb began, "I want to thank all our participants for another outstanding competition. The quality of entries continues to improve each year, making our judges' job increasingly difficult." Angela felt Emily slip her hand into hers and squeeze gently. The gesture was subtle enough not to draw attention, but it steadied Angela's nerves considerably. "This year's competition was particularly close," Margaret continued, "with several entries deserving recognition. In third place, for his exceptional heirloom variety display, Jim Patterson of Patterson Family Corn." Applause rippled through the crowd as Jim stepped forward to accept his bronze ribbon, grinning widely. "Second place was an extremely difficult decision," Margaret said, consulting her cards. The judges were impressed by the innovation and quality of this relatively new operation. "Congratulations to Emily Chen of Hollow Creek Farm." Angela's heart leaped with genuine joy for Emily, even as she felt the familiar sting of her own disappointment. Emily deserved the recognition. Her operation was genuinely impressive, and she'd worked incredibly hard to build something special in just 2 years. "Congratulations," Angela whispered, squeezing Emily's hand before releasing it so Emily could step forward to accept her silver ribbon. Emily's smile was radiant as she shook hands with Margaret and posed for photos, but Angela caught the way Emily's eyes sought hers in the crowd, as if the achievement only mattered because Angela was there to witness it. And finally, Margaret announced as Emily returned to Angela's side, still clutching her ribbon, "Our first-place winner, continuing a family tradition of excellence that spans 3 generations, Angela Martinez of Martinez Family Farm." The relief that flooded through Angela was followed immediately by something unexpected, a desire to share this moment with Emily rather than savor it alone. As she walked toward the stage to accept her blue ribbon, Angela felt Emily's eyes on her, warm with pride and affection that had nothing to do with competition. 16 years running," Margaret said as she handed Angela the familiar blue ribbon. "That's quite a streak, Angela." What's your secret? Good soil, hard work, and learning something new every year, Angela said into the microphone, her eyes finding Emily in the crowd. And this year I learned that the best farming happens when we share knowledge instead of hoarding it. Competition makes us all better. The applause was enthusiastic, but Angela barely heard it. She was focused on Emily's expression, surprise, then understanding, then a smile so bright it could have powered the entire festival. As soon as the ceremony concluded and Angela had satisfied the obligatory photo requirements, Emily appeared at her side. Congratulations, Emily said warmly. That ribbon is well deserved. So is yours, Angela replied. And I meant what I said up there. You made me better this year. We made each other better. They were interrupted by a steady stream of well-wishers offering congratulations and asking about Angela's plans for next year's competition, but eventually the crowd thinned and they found themselves alone near Emily's display booth. So, Emily said, absently straightening pumpkins that were already perfectly arranged. 16 years. That's incredible. Angela studied Emily's expression, looking for signs of disappointment or resentment, but found only genuine admiration. Are you okay? I know you were hoping. I'm more than okay, Emily interrupted. Angela, I placed second at the Millfield Pumpkin Festival in only my 3rd year of farming. That's beyond what I dreamed when I started this whole adventure. But you wanted to win. Of course I did. But wanting something and needing it are different things. Emily's smile was soft and genuine. I wanted to win. You needed to win. There's a difference. Angela frowned. What do you mean I needed to win? Your family's legacy, the community's expectations, your own sense of identity as a farmer, it's all tied up in that winning streak. Emily gestured toward the blue ribbon still clutched in Angela's hand. I wanted recognition for my work, but you were carrying the weight of 3 generations of tradition. The insight was so perceptive, so generous, that Angela felt tears prick at her eyes. I don't know if that's true anymore. No? A week ago, you would have been right. But now? Angela looked around at the festival still bustling with families and friends, at the community that had supported both their farms, at Emily's patient, understanding expression. Now I think I was competing with the wrong things. What do you mean? I was so focused on defending something from the past that I forgot to build something for the future. Angela took a step closer to Emily, close enough to speak quietly without being overheard. This week, working with you, learning from you, it reminded me why I fell in love with farming in the first place. Emily's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Angela. I'm trying to say that winning feels good, but what happened between us feels better. Angela's voice was soft but certain. A lot better. Even if it complicates everything. The neighborhood dynamics, the competition next year, what people will think. Angela considered the question seriously. In a small community like Millfield, relationships between neighbors were always subject to gossip and speculation. Dating her former rival would certainly give people something to talk about. Let them think what they want, Angela said finally. I'm tired of making decisions based on other people's expectations. Emily's smile was brilliant. Does that mean you want to keep figuring this out? Us, I mean? I want to figure out everything with you, Angela said, surprised by her own certainty. The farming stuff, the relationship stuff, what we're building together, all of it. Before Emily could respond, they were interrupted by the approach of several festival goers wanting to congratulate Angela on her win and compliment Emily on her display. They spent another hour talking to neighbors and friends, but Angela found her attention continually drawn to Emily, the way she laughed at bad jokes, how she remembered details about people's lives, the genuine warmth with which she treated everyone from children to elderly farmers. As the afternoon sun began its descent toward the western hills, the festival crowd gradually thinned. Vendors started packing up their booths, families headed home with tired children and arms full of pumpkins, and the magical atmosphere of the day slowly wound down. Help me load up? Emily asked as they surveyed her remaining inventory. Of course. They worked together to pack Emily's unsold pumpkins and dismantle her display, the familiar rhythm of physical labor comfortable after their week of collaboration. Angela found herself stealing glances at Emily as they worked, still hardly believing that this beautiful, talented woman was interested in building something with her. "Penny for your thoughts," Emily said, catching Angela in one of those glances. "Just thinking about how different today was from what I expected," Angela admitted. "Different how?" "Last week, I thought today would be about proving something, to the judges, to the community, to myself." Angela hefted a crate of pumpkins into Emily's truck. "Instead, it feels like the beginning of something." "What kind of something?" Angela paused, considering how to articulate the feeling growing in her chest. "Partnership, maybe? In all the ways that word can mean." Emily's smile was soft and wondering. "I like the sound of that." By the time they finished loading both trucks, the festival grounds were nearly empty, with only a few vendors still packing up their displays. The October evening was crisp and clear, with the first stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky. "Celebratory dinner?" Emily suggested. "I know we ate festival food all day, but I'm thinking this calls for something special." "What did you have in mind?" "There's a nice restaurant about 20 minutes north of here. Farm-to-table place that sources locally." Emily's expression grew slightly shy. "I was thinking it might be nice to have our first official date somewhere that isn't one of our kitchens." Angela felt warmth spread through her chest. "I'd love that." "Really? Even though you probably want to get home and put your ribbon somewhere safe?" Angela glanced at the blue ribbon still clutched in her hand, then back at Emily's hopeful expression. The ribbon represented 16 years of family tradition, countless hours of work, and the validation of a lifetime spent perfecting her craft. But Emily represented something entirely new: possibility, partnership, and a future she was only beginning to imagine. "The ribbon will still be there tomorrow," Angela said. "But this moment won't." Emily's smile was radiant. "Then let's go celebrate properly." They caravanned to the restaurant in their separate trucks, and Angela found herself humming along to the radio as she followed Emily's taillights through the winding country roads. The day had been full of surprises, but the biggest one was how natural it felt to be building something with Emily instead of competing against her. The restaurant was everything Emily had promised: a cozy farmhouse converted to a dining establishment, with exposed beams and tables made from reclaimed wood. The menu featured ingredients sourced from local farms, including several items Angela recognized from her own farmers market customers. "This is perfect," Angela said as they were seated at a table by the window overlooking a small garden. "I hoped you'd like it. I've been wanting to bring you here for, longer than I probably should admit." Angela raised an eyebrow. "Oh." Emily blushed slightly. "I may have been harboring a crush for longer than just this past week." "Really? How long? Remember last spring when you helped me figure out why my tomato seedlings were failing?" Emily's cheeks grew pinker. "I may have developed feelings around then." Angela felt her heart skip. "That was months ago. Why didn't you say anything?" "You could barely stand to be in the same room with me," Emily said with a rueful laugh. "I figured my chances were somewhere between slim and non-existent." "I could stand to be in the same room with you," Angela protested. I was scared of what I was feeling." "Scared how?" Angela considered how to explain the complicated mix of attraction and anxiety that had characterized her feelings about Emily for months. "Scared that I was attracted to someone I was supposed to see as competition. Scared that if I let myself like you, I'd lose focus on what I thought was important. Scared that you might not." She trailed off, suddenly embarrassed. "Might not what?" "Might not be interested in someone like me," Angela admitted quietly. Emily's expression grew soft and serious. "Someone like you? Someone who's never lived anywhere else, who doesn't have a college degree, who spends most of her time covered in dirt and talking to plants." Angela's voice was barely above a whisper. "You're sophisticated and educated and beautiful, and I'm just..." "Just what?" Emily interrupted gently. "Just a farmer." Emily reached across the table to cover Angela's hand with her own. Angela Martinez, you are the most competent, intelligent, passionate person I've ever met. You run a complex agricultural operation, you're an expert in soil science and plant biology, you've built something beautiful and sustainable that feeds your community. Emily's voice was fierce with conviction. You're not just anything. You're extraordinary. Angela felt tears prick at her eyes. Emily. I fell for you because you know things I'm still learning. Because you have roots and connections I'm still trying to build. Because when you talk about farming, your whole face lights up with love for what you do. Emily's thumb traced circles on the back of Angela's hand. You're not less than me, you're everything I aspire to be. The waiter appeared to take their drink order, giving Angela a moment to compose herself. By the time they'd ordered wine and appetizers, she'd managed to process Emily's words enough to respond. I've never thought of myself that way, Angela said quietly. Maybe it's time you started. They spent dinner talking about everything except farming, childhood memories, favorite books, travel dreams, and the small details that make up a life. Angela discovered that Emily was a voracious reader with a particular weakness for mystery novels, that she'd backpacked through Europe after college, and that she made the world's best chocolate chip cookies but refused to share the recipe with anyone. Anyone? Angela challenged. Not even someone you're dating? Well, Emily said with mock seriousness, I suppose I could be persuaded to share family secrets with the right person. And what would make someone the right person? Emily's smile was soft and full of promise. I guess we'll have to find out. By the time they finished dinner, the restaurant was nearly empty and the wine had left Angela feeling relaxed and bold in a way that was entirely unlike her usual cautious nature. I should probably head home, she said as they walked to their trucks in the parking lot, though she made no move to actually leave. Probably, Emily agreed, but she didn't move toward her own truck either. They stood there in the cool October air, neither quite ready to end the evening. Angela felt like they were standing on the edge of something significant, a moment that would determine the shape of whatever was growing between them. Emily? Angela's voice was soft in the evening air. Would you like to come back to my place? For coffee, or just to sit on the porch, or... She trailed off, suddenly uncertain. Emily stepped closer, close enough that Angela could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes. I'd love to. They drove back to Angela's farm in comfortable silence, the quiet country roads lit only by moonlight and the occasional porch light from scattered farmhouses. Angela felt a nervous excitement building in her chest, not the anxious kind that had characterized so much of her relationship with Emily in the past, but the good kind that came with anticipation of something wonderful. Angela's farmhouse looked welcoming in the moonlight, the porch light casting a warm glow over the rocking chairs where she'd spent countless evenings alone. Tonight, she wouldn't be alone. Coffee? Angela offered as they climbed the front steps. Actually, Emily said, settling into one of the rocking chairs, I think I'd rather just sit here with you for a while. If that's okay. That's perfect. Angela took the chair beside Emily's, and they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of the countryside, crickets chirping, a distant owl calling, the rustle of wind through the trees. The harvest moon hung full and bright above them, casting silver light across both their pumpkin patches. It's beautiful here, Emily said quietly. It is tonight, Angela agreed, but she was looking at Emily rather than the landscape. Emily caught her gaze and smiled. Are you happy with how today turned out? Angela considered the question. She'd won the competition she'd been preparing for all season, but more importantly, she'd found something she hadn't even known she was looking for. Happier than I thought possible, she said honestly. Even though everything's about to get more complicated? What do you mean? Emily's expression grew thoughtful. We're neighbors. We grow the same crops. We'll be competing again next year. People are going to have opinions about us dating. She paused, seeming to gather courage for her next words. And I'm pretty sure I'm falling in love with you, which is definitely going to complicate things. Angela's heart stopped, then started again at double speed. You're falling in love with me? Terrifyingly fast, Emily admitted. I know it's only been a week since we figured out we liked each other, but the feelings have been building for months. Maybe since the day you helped me with my tomato seedlings and I saw how gentle you were with something so small and vulnerable. Angela felt tears prick at her eyes. Emily. I know it's probably too soon to say that, and I don't want to pressure you or make you feel like you have to. I love you too, Angela interrupted softly. Emily's rocking chair stopped moving. You do? I do. I've been trying not to admit it to myself, but I do. Angela reached for Emily's hand, threading their fingers together. I love how passionate you are about everything you do. I love how you see possibility where other people see problems. I love that you took a huge risk to build something beautiful, and I love that you're brave enough to be vulnerable with me. Emily's smile was brilliant, transforming her entire face. Really? Really? Angela brought Emily's hand to her lips, pressing a soft kiss to her knuckles. I love you, Emily Chen. Complications and all. Emily was out of her chair in an instant, crossing the small space between them to cup Angela's face in her hands. I love you too, Angela Martinez. So much. Their kiss was soft and deep and full of promise, months of suppressed attraction and newly acknowledged love pouring into the connection between them. Angela felt like she was coming home and embarking on an adventure at the same time, safe in Emily's arms but also open to possibilities she'd never imagined. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Emily rested her forehead against Angela's. So what happens now? Emily asked. Angela considered the question. What did happen when two neighboring farmers fell in love? When competitors became partners? When a perfectly ordered life suddenly included someone who made everything more complicated and more wonderful? Now we figure it out together, Angela said. All of it. The farming, the competing, the being in love part. We make it up as we go. I like the sound of that. Me too. They settled back into their respective chairs, hands still linked, and rocked gently as they watched the moon traverse the star-filled sky. Angela felt a contentment she'd never experienced before, a sense of rightness that had nothing to do with winning ribbons or maintaining family traditions. The harvest moon, Emily said softly, following Angela's gaze upward. Perfect night for it. Perfect night for a lot of things. Angela smiled, thinking about the day's events. She'd defended her family's legacy, yes, but more importantly, she'd found her own future. Not the solitary path she'd imagined, but something richer and more complex and infinitely more rewarding. Thank you, Angela said quietly. For what? For being brave enough to move here. For challenging me to be better. For making me remember why I love what I do. Angela squeezed Emily's hand. For loving me back. Emily's smile was soft and radiant. Thank you for giving us a chance. For sharing your knowledge and your heart and your beautiful life with me. As they sat together under the harvest moon, Angela felt the pieces of her world rearranging themselves into new patterns. The farm would still be central to her life, but it would no longer be her whole life. The competition with Emily had evolved into something deeper and more sustaining than rivalry. Tomorrow, they'd both wake up to the same chores and responsibilities they'd had yesterday. But they'd face them together now, partners in love and agriculture and whatever challenges the changing seasons might bring. Angela couldn't imagine anything more perfect than that.
Epilogue 1 year later. The October morning dawned crisp and bright, with the kind of perfect autumn weather that made Angela grateful to be alive and farming in Millfield Valley. She was up before sunrise, as always, but this morning she wasn't alone in the kitchen when she started the coffee. Emily appeared in the doorway wearing one of Angela's old flannel shirts over her pajamas, blonde hair tousled from sleep and a smile that still made Angela's heart skip after a year together. Morning, beautiful, Emily said, crossing to the coffee pot and beginning their now familiar morning routine. Emily made the coffee while Angela packed lunches for their day of harvest preparation. Morning, Angela replied, stealing a kiss as Emily reached around her for the coffee filters. Sleep well? Like a rock. I think all that pumpkin moving yesterday wore me out. They'd spent the previous day doing the final harvest of their combined crop, working side by side to bring in the fruits of another successful growing season. The collaboration that had begun tentatively a year ago had evolved into a seamless partnership. They still maintained separate farms and their own distinct approaches, but they shared labor, knowledge, and resources in ways that benefited both operations. "Ready for another festival?" Angela asked, settling at the kitchen table with her coffee and the newspaper. "Ready to not care who wins," Emily replied, joining her with her own mug. "Though I have to admit, I'm curious to see how our joint display turns out." This year, they'd decided to combine their entries into a single display that showcased both their individual strengths and their collaborative approach to farming. Angela's massive prize pumpkin sat alongside Emily's artfully arranged smaller specimens, traditional growing methods celebrated next to innovative marketing techniques. "I think it looks amazing," Angela said. Very us," Emily agreed with a smile. The past year had brought changes neither of them had anticipated when they'd first acknowledged their feelings for each other. Emily had expanded her agritourism operation to include the teaching workshops she'd dreamed about, with Angela co-instructing classes on soil health and sustainable growing practices. Angela had incorporated some of Emily's marketing innovations into her own operation, adding a small farm store and pick-your-own section that had proven wildly popular with families. More importantly, they'd navigated the personal challenges of combining their lives while maintaining their individual identities. Emily had sold her farmhouse and moved in with Angela 6 months ago, but she'd kept her own growing plots and maintained her separate business operations. They'd learned to balance togetherness with independence, support with space, love with respect for each other's autonomy. "Mrs. Henderson stopped by yesterday while you were in town," Emily said, flipping through the day's mail. "She wanted me to tell you that her grandson got into agricultural college and credits your workshops with inspiring his career choice." Angela felt the familiar warm glow that came with knowing her work was making a difference in young people's lives. "That's wonderful. He'll make a great farmer." She also mentioned that the Henderson farm might be coming up for sale soon, Emily continued casually. "Something about wanting to downsize now that Tom's thinking about retirement." Angela looked up from her newspaper. The Henderson farm bordered both their properties on the north side, with some of the best soil in the valley and a charming old farmhouse that had been in their family for 4 generations. "Are you thinking what I think you're thinking?" Angela asked. Emily's smile was slightly shy but determined. "Maybe. I mean, we've talked about expanding our educational programs, and that land would be perfect for demonstration plots and workshop spaces. Plus," she trailed off, suddenly looking uncertain. "Plus what?" "Plus I've been thinking about the future. Our future. And maybe it's time to start planning for the long term." Angela set down her coffee, giving Emily her full attention. In the year they'd been together, they'd talked about many things, but they'd been careful not to push too hard too fast when it came to major life decisions. "What kind of long term?" Angela asked gently. Emily took a deep breath, as if gathering courage for something important. "The kind where we stop talking about your farm and my farm and start talking about our farm. The kind where we make decisions together about everything, not just harvest schedules and workshop topics." She paused, meeting Angela's gaze directly. "The kind where we get married, if that's something you'd want." Angela felt her heart stop, then start again at double speed. "Emily. I know we haven't talked about marriage specifically, and I don't want to pressure you," Emily continued quickly. "But I love you, and I love the life we're building together, and I want to make it official. I want to wake up every morning knowing we're partners in everything, not just farming." Angela stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the kitchen floor, and Emily's face fell. "Oh," Emily said quietly. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." Angela crossed to the kitchen counter and opened the drawer where she kept important papers. From beneath a stack of seed catalogs, she pulled out a small velvet box that she'd been carrying around for 3 weeks, waiting for the right moment. "Actually," Angela said, turning back to Emily with a grin, "I was hoping you'd bring that up." Emily's eyes widened as Angela approached with the jewelry box. "Angela, is that?" "Emily Chen," Angela said, dropping to one knee beside Emily's chair. "Will you marry me?" Emily's hands flew to her mouth, tears immediately springing to her eyes. "Oh my God, yes. Yes, of course, yes." Angela opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring, a square-cut diamond set in recycled gold, chosen for its understated beauty and ethical sourcing. Emily's hands were shaking as Angela slipped it onto her finger, both of them laughing and crying at the same time. "I can't believe we were both planning this," Emily said through her tears, admiring the ring on her hand. "Great minds think alike," Angela replied, standing to pull Emily into her arms. "I love you so much." "I love you too. I can't wait to be your wife." They held each other in the morning sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows, surrounded by the comfortable domestic details of the life they'd built together, coffee cooling on the table, work clothes hanging by the back door, seed catalogs and farming journals scattered across the counter. "So," Emily said eventually, pulling back to look at Angela's face, "should we buy the Henderson place?" Angela laughed. "I think that's probably a conversation for after we've had more coffee and processed the fact that we just got engaged." "Fair point. Though I have to say, I like how we make decisions together." "Even the big scary ones?" "Especially the big scary ones." They spent the rest of the morning in comfortable domestic routine, but with the added joy of frequent interruptions to admire Emily's ring or share spontaneous kisses. By the time they needed to leave for the festival grounds, they'd managed to discuss initial wedding plans, small ceremony, probably next fall after harvest, expansion possibilities. The Henderson farm would indeed be perfect for their educational programs, and their strategy for the day's competition: have fun and celebrate their combined efforts regardless of the outcome. The festival was already bustling with activity when they arrived, vendors setting up booths and families beginning to trickle in for the day's festivities. Their joint display drew immediate attention from both judges and festival goers, a beautiful representation of how traditional methods and innovative approaches could complement each other. "This is stunning," said Dr. Kim, one of the returning judges from the State Agricultural Extension Program. "I love how you've showcased both individual excellence and collaborative innovation." Angela and Emily exchanged glances, both thinking the same thing. Their display wasn't just about farming techniques. It was a perfect metaphor for their relationship and their approach to building a life together. The judging process was familiar but felt different this year. Instead of nervous anxiety, Angela felt excitement and pride in what they'd accomplished together. Win or lose, they'd created something beautiful and meaningful that represented the best of both their skills and perspectives. "Nervous?" Emily asked as they watched the judges move on to evaluate other displays. "Not really," Angela replied, surprised to realize she meant it. "Whatever happens, we did good work this year." "We did, didn't we?" They spent the day enjoying the festival together, sharing kettle corn and apple cider, watching the pie-eating contest, and browsing the craft booths. Several people commented on Emily's new ring, and they found themselves sharing the news of their engagement with friends and neighbors who responded with overwhelming warmth and enthusiasm. "It's about time," said Mrs. Henderson with obvious satisfaction. "I've been telling anyone who'd listen that you two were perfect for each other." "You have?" Angela asked, surprised. "Oh honey, it was obvious to everyone except you two. The way you looked at each other, even when you were pretending to be competitors, we all knew it was just a matter of time." As the afternoon wore on, Angela reflected on how much had changed since that first morning when Emily had brought her coffee and offered to help with the harvest. What had started as reluctant collaboration had grown into love, partnership, and now the promise of a shared future that stretched far beyond growing pumpkins. "Ladies and gentlemen, please gather around for our awards ceremony." The familiar announcement crackled through the festival sound system, and Angela felt the old flutter of nerves mixed with anticipation. They joined the crowd gathered around the main stage, hands linked as they waited for the results. Angela caught sight of their combined display in the distance, pumpkins glowing orange in the afternoon sunlight, and felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with winning or losing. This year's competition featured some truly exceptional entries, Margaret Webb announced, including some innovative collaborative approaches that represent the future of sustainable agriculture in our region. Angela squeezed Emily's hand, both of them grinning at the obvious reference to their joint entry. Third place goes to Jim Patterson, for his outstanding heirloom corn display. Applause rippled through the crowd as Jim stepped forward, waving his hat in acknowledgement. Second place was a difficult decision, Margaret continued, but goes to Sarah Mitchell for her exceptional winter squash variety demonstration. More applause, and Angela felt her heartbeat accelerate slightly. This was the moment either they'd won, or someone else had created something even more impressive than their collaborative effort. And first place. Margaret paused dramatically, goes to our first ever joint entry, from Angela Martinez and Emily Chen, for their outstanding demonstration of how traditional methods and innovative approaches can work together to create something truly special. The crowd erupted in enthusiastic applause as Angela and Emily looked at each other in shock and delight. They'd won, not as competitors, but as partners. "Go," Emily said, pushing Angela toward the stage. "We did it." They walked to the stage together, hands linked, accepting the blue ribbon and posing for photos as a team. Angela felt tears of joy threatening as she looked out at the crowd of friends and neighbors who'd supported both their individual journeys and their partnership. "Any words?" Margaret asked, offering them the microphone. Angela and Emily exchanged glances, and Emily nodded encouragingly. "A year ago, we were competitors," Angela said into the microphone, her voice carrying clearly across the crowd. "Today, we're partners in farming, in life, and as of this morning." She held up Emily's hand to show off the engagement ring, in marriage. The crowd exploded in cheers and applause, and Angela felt overwhelmed by the warmth and support of their community. This was what she'd been defending all those years when she'd thought Emily was a threat, not just her family's farming legacy, but this sense of belonging, of being part of something larger than herself. But now she understood that the best way to honor that legacy wasn't to guard it jealously, but to share it generously and build on it with someone who brought their own gifts to the partnership. As they stepped down from the stage, ribbon in hand and surrounded by congratulating friends, Angela felt the deep satisfaction of a year well lived and a future bright with possibility. "No regrets?" Emily asked quietly as they made their way back through the crowd. "About what?" "About not having your individual winning streak continue. About sharing the spotlight instead of taking it alone." Angela considered the question seriously, looking at their blue ribbon and thinking about the 16-year individual streak that had officially ended today. But all she felt was gratitude, for Emily's partnership, for their community's support, for the chance to build something new while honoring something old. "None," Angela said firmly. "This is better than anything I could have accomplished alone." Emily's smile was radiant. "I love you, Angela Martinez." "I love you too, soon-to-be Emily Martinez Chen." "Is that what we're doing? Hyphenating?" "We'll figure it out," Angela said with a laugh. "We're good at figuring things out together." As the sun began to set over Millfield Valley, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold that perfectly matched their prize-winning pumpkins, Angela and Emily walked hand in hand toward their trucks, ready to head home to the farm they now officially shared and the future they would build together. The harvest moon was rising again, full and bright and beautiful, just as it had been exactly 1 year ago when everything had begun to change. But this time Angela wasn't looking at it alone from her front porch. This time, she had Emily beside her, and a lifetime of harvest moons ahead of them. It was, Angela thought as they drove home through the quiet country roads, the perfect end to a perfect beginning. The end. If you listened to the end, thank you for being here. Would you like to hear a continuation of Angela and Emily's story? Let me know in the comment.